to the Ottawa County Patriots presentation entitled Perspectives on Islam. As usual, we will begin with a prayer. Our Father in heaven, thank you for the blessings we enjoy as a free people in a country where our founders wisely attributed our rights, the rights of mankind, to you, our Creator. Thank you also for the privilege of hearing the insight of those on this topic of great interest to Christians everywhere. While we enjoy safety in our country, we ask that you hear the cries of Christians in places where their faith is being tested. Be with us this evening and help increase our awareness of forces that would infringe upon our rights and our faith. Thank you for the willingness of people eager to learn, and give them the strength to go forth and share with others. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Could we rise, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As you sat down, or those of you who are standing up, could the people who are standing up come on in? We're going to try and, I know that there's some room around the corner, and we have some more ladies, gentlemen. We have some more ladies. Why don't you come on up to this area here, and we're going to get some gentlemen that will give up their seats for the ladies. And again, I apologize for the mix-up. I was a little disdained when I came in and found a group of 25 people in a room downstairs that was meant for 200, which should have been our room. Okay, as I started to say, you'll see a paper like this sitting on your seat. I would very, very much appreciate if you would fill it out. It's called an evaluation form, but more importantly, it is so that I know how you found out about this meeting. Even if you are one of our regular meeting members, and I may know you by face, I would like you very much to fill out one of these. For those people that are standing and didn't find these on their seat, could I ask somebody to take these back to them? Thank you very much.
We need someone to read it.
Yeah.
All right. Some of you read in the paper that there may have been an issue that this program was offered to Hope College last year after they did a program on campus. Perhaps politically correct would have been a way of describing it. Some people described it otherwise. Their program entailed several very, very high-priced speakers on Islam. Myself and two other people went into the president's office, explained why we wanted to present this as an alternative viewpoint, and we were declined. Even though one of the speakers, our featured speaker, is a Hope College graduate. With that, we're going to begin our program with our first speaker. I'd like to introduce, and could we have our telephones, please, turn them down, please. Our first speaker is Adel Abidar. Adel is originally from Egypt, and he is what's known as a Coptic Christian. I never understood that. That is meaning Egyptian Christian. Adel is a professor of economics, right, at Calvin College. And without further ado, I will have Adel come forward. And we don't have the wireless mic yet.
If I don't use the mic, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh yeah. So let's use the mic. My name is Adel Abadir. I'm from Egypt. I am of the minority Coptic population in Egypt. We count about 15%. I have to use a mic again. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I love to have my hands free for some reason because I use it a lot. What I will talk about, I'm talk about Islam from a perspective of a non-Muslim minority who lived in majority Muslim country. Of course, we need to bring Muslim scholar to talk about Islam. But Muslim scholar only reflect one side of Islam or one side of the coin. We always need to hear the other side of the coin because everyone will come and speak to you, will tell you, I tell you the truth. I'm not going to tell you that. I'm going to share with you some Islamic scripture from the Quran and from Hadith. Quran is the word as revealed from Allah through Angel Gabriel to Muhammad between years 610 to 632. Hadiths are the saying of Muhammad to his companion, and why it is very important that hadiths, Muhammad saying and Muhammad deeds are so important because Allah, the God of Islam, command Muslim to obey Allah and to obey Muhammad. So you obey Allah in the Quran and you obey Muhammad in Hadith, which is the saying of Muhammad, and Sunnah, which are the deeds of Muhammad. As of anything, Islam is multidimensional. We see some gradualism in Islam, and what I'm going to share with you is gradualism of Islam, and the gradualism of Islam reflects the gradualism of Muslim. So here, I'm going to share the early phases of Islam, and the intermediate phase, and the concluding phase. Can we let the light
More lights?
Yes.
Or less lights? There you go.
Here we go.
Okay, so here in early phase of Islam, you see coexistence with non-Muslim. As here, the American minority, the Muslim American who live here in the United States, they are loving. Most of them are peace-loving, caring neighbor because they want to coexist because they are minority. The second phase, which intermediate phase, is separate communities of Muslim with separate rules for Muslims and non-Muslim. But when the Muslims have enough mass of population, you may see it here in certain state, maybe on the east side of this state, you see a community that try to impose its own rule or its own custom that's separate from American Constitution, or at least there is the threat or potential of having this. The third phase, which is the dominant phase, where here's the dominance of Islam and Muslim and imposition of Islamic Sharia. Of course, there is no imposition of Islamic Sharia here. In some European country where Muslim population reach a certain mass, they talk about certain aspect of Islamic Sharia, but in the Middle East and in South Asia, you see like more or less application of Islamic Sharia in Saudi Arabia, in Iran, in Pakistan, in Afghanistan, in Sudan, and now recently in the Mediterranean country like in Egypt, Libya, and Tunisia, and so on. Okay, so let's move here with the, I think I'm moving super fast. Okay, I'm going to give it to you, and you control it better. I need to hand you the mouse. So we'll go to base 3.
Next.
Yes. So here in the early phase of Islam was practiced in early Islam, maybe until between 610 to early 620 when Muhammad was married to Sayyidah Khadija, the first wife, and she was Christian, and her cousin was a Christian monk who taught Muhammad about Christianity, about Islam, about his revelation, and who convinced Muhammad that he is a prophet. So he was a heretic monk. Appear nowadays to liberal and moderate Muslim. During this early stage, the belief in Muhammad is not mentioned, only the belief in Allah. So here gradually, Muhammad is not prophet, just believe in Allah. I'm going to share with you the less violent or the more peaceful, based on a relative term, the type of verses that most people here who come to Hope College will share with Christian community. Okay, next one. So here in Surah means chapter. There are 114 Surah. So Surah Al-Baqarah, I write it first in Arabic. In the second line, I write it in English, the meaning. So this is a chapter of the cow. And this is chapter 2. So you're going to notice the first number is the chapter and the second number is the verse. So what God or Allah of the Quran tell Muhammad? Those who believe and those who follow the Jewish and the Christian and the Sabian, any who believe in Allah and the last day and work righteousness shall have their own reward with their Lord. It's beautiful. He said, like Christian will have their reward, Jews, Sabian, and you Muslim. Okay. Here in Surah Al-Baqarah, the same chapter like Surah 2, let there be no compulsion in religion. Pay attention to this. Let there be what? No compulsion in religion. Islam is so peaceful, you cannot compel. Later on, I will show you the reverse of this or the complete opposite of this. Next. It is he who sent down to thee in truth the book, confirming what went before you. And he sent down the law of Moses and the gospel of Jesus before this as a guide to mankind. So we tell Muslim or we tell Muhammad, this is God who sends the guidance before through the gospel and through the Torah to Christian and the Jews. Next. Behold, Allah says, so here how Allah is pleased with Jesus. Oh Jesus. The word Jesus is in English, in Arabic is Isa. Muslim use Isa to call Jesus in the Quran. Christian in Arabic call Jesus Yeshua. So Muslims try to impose of us. We should not say Yeshua. We should say what? We should say Isa. So they impose this. But in English, when they translate it to English, even though Isa is a proper name, they translate it to how the Western use the name of Jesus Christ. So Allah, behold, Allah said, oh Jesus, I will take thee and raise thee to myself and clear thee of falsehood, of those who blaspheme. I will make those who follow thee, pay attention, because you're going to see the opposite. I will make those who what? Who follow thee superior to those who reject faith to the day of resurrection. That means we, the Christian, God will raise us above all other creation to the day of what? Isn't that beautiful? Isn't this Islam is a peaceful religion? And elevate you and welcome you and try to hug every one of you till you are the son and daughter of Abraham. And you cannot say no. So, another in Surah here, Al-Imran, Surah number 3, verse 64. O people of the book, come to a common term as between us and you, that we worship none but Allah, that we associate no partner with him, that we erect not from among ourselves Lord and patrons, other than Allah. If they turn back, if these people who you invite them to come to this world, if they turn back, don't fight them, don't slay them, don't kill them. What to do with them? Just be witness that we are Muslims. So the most you can do, if people reject you, tell them what? Oh, we are Muslim if you reject our calling to worship one God. Because there is no violence here. Just, I'm gonna negate. I'm gonna move away from you. Those who believe in the Quran, those who follow the Jewish scripture, and Sabian, and the Christian, any who believe in Allah and the last day and work righteousness, on them shall be no fear, nor shall they grieve. Now the Jews are good, and Christian are what? Are good. Jews who follow Torah or the Talmud, Christian who follows the Bible, there is no fear in them. Next. This is fascinating verse. This verse tells Muhammad, if you are in doubt of what we reveal to you, ask the guidance from Christian Jews. This means if you don't know, if you are confused, ask the people of the book who came before you, they will give you the guidance. So if you are in doubt as what we have revealed to you, ask those who read the book before you, because you have the truth. Later on, we don't have the truth. Next. Invite in the way of the Lord with wisdom and beautiful preaching. That's what they tell you. Muhammad invited people to Islam in the way of what? In the way of wisdom and beautiful preaching. We're going to see something different. So here is the early state when Muhammad, in early years, where very few people believed in him. Less than 72 people believed in him in these early years. Next. And dispute ye not with people of the book. So don't dispute with the people of the book. Next. And have patience with what they say, and leave them with noble. Like if they say something different from you, have patience with them and what? Leave. This is peaceful. This is noble behavior. Okay? Next. So here is what most Muslims will come and tell you in America. That is Islam. And we are brother and sister. And they're going to cite some verses from chapter Maryam, because said we praise Maryam or. And they give you this beautiful saying early on. But it's like a day has what? 24 hours has a day and night. A whole year has 4 seasons. So let's check the other angle or the other feature of Islam. So here is the second feature when we have some separation. Next. Here, pay attention here. The Jews who God asked Muhammad to what? To obey, to listen to them, no fear in them. Who are the most enemy among people against Muslims? Pay attention here. Strongest among men in enmity to the believer, where thou find the Jews and pagan. They don't say that here, because there is strong Jewish population or Jewish media. But he appealed, so here, the God of Islam, Allah create a wedge between Christian and Jews. Jews are bad, but who are good? And here, and nearest among them in love to the believer was thou found those who say who are Christian. So now the Jews are bad and Christian are what? Are good. Is this the separation policy we have? Divide and conquer? Okay. Next. Here. Both the Christian and Jews are bad now. Never will the Jews or the Christian be satisfied with thee unless you follow their form of religion. Wow. Didn't he ask you to seek guidance from them if you are in doubt of what is revealed to you? Didn't he tell you to believe in what is written in the old book, like the Torah and the Bible? Now is different. We are separate. We have a good mass of population. We have our rule, and this intermediate phase, we're going to the concluding phase. Next. O ye who believe, take not the Jews and Christians for your friend and protector. And if you do that, you become one of the people of the unjust people. So now, what happened? But there is no war. There is no bloodshedding. There is no urging to slay or to kill or to reject or humiliate. Just separate. Next. Do they seek for other than the religion of Allah, while all creatures in heaven and earth have willing and unwilling bow to the will of Allah? How come? Do you think they don't believe in Allah? Every creation, every creature in heaven and on earth, willingly or unwillingly will bow and be Muslim. Now there's only what? Is there Christianity here? No. Is there Jewish or Jews? No, it's Islam. Next. Anyone desire a religion other than Islam, never will it be accepted of him. So you see, here is the separation. Next. I'm moving a little bit fast because Jim gave me a limited time, so blame him, not me. So here, O ye who believe in Allah and His messenger. Who is the messenger here? Muhammad. And the scripture which has been sent to His messenger, and the scripture which was sent before. Any who denies Allah, pay attention, angel, books, and messenger. I accept some messenger, but not Muhammad. Do I have the right to do so? No. So any of those, and the day of judgment has gone far, far astray. If I believe in some prophet and I don't believe in others, like Muhammad, I went astray. Ye, to those who take for friend unbeliever rather than believers, is it honor they seek among them? Nay, honor is be with Allah. That means don't befriend Christian and Muslim. Muslim will befriend you because they are weak now. They are a small community. In our culture, they don't befriend me. They belittle me. They harass me. They force me. Next. Oh, who you believe, take note for friend. Next one. Here, those who deny Allah and His messengers, and those who wish to separate Allah from His messengers, saying we believe in some but we reject what? Others, like me. I reject all lying prophet. I reject only the prophet of the Bible. I accept only the prophet of the Bible. But who, like Jews and Christians, who accept some or reject some, God will punish them. They are in truth unbeliever, who are unbeliever. Now the Jews and Christians become unbeliever because the Jews believe in Moses and the revelation to Moses. Christians believe in Jesus and the gospel, and we don't believe in Muhammad. Now we are on the wrong side. Next. Here is the concluding phase, which is the dominance. And you see the tone change significantly. You don't hear any of these verses. You don't hear any of this hadith or saying of Muhammad at all when a Muslim sheikh or a Muslim scholar can present the case. That's why I wish when I talked to Jim, I said, I wish some Muslim scholar will come so I can discuss with him. In an interview on the radio yesterday, I invited some Muslim to come and join us. I'm not in hiding. I have an open debate. And I'm using the Islamic or God word for word to Muslim, which is the Quran. I'm not hiding anything. I don't fear things because I'm sharing the truth. And I want to share the truth with my Muslim friend and brothers. And also with many Christians who have different view. Smart people listen, but don't believe. Listen and then research. Don't listen to someone who give you one side of the coin unless you listen to the other who give you what? The other side of the coin, and then you can tell if the coin is false or the coin is a genuine coin. So, listen. Here Jews and Christians are called Zimmi. They can live as long as they conform to Muslim Sharia law. They can live as second-class citizen in Muslim state. Jews and Christians must pay a poll tax called jizya to Muslims. Jews and Christians must feel subdued, so you don't pay the tax. You must feel subdued and humiliated. Pagan were not allowed in the Medina, or pagan do not have place in the Islamic state. Next. Next. Okay. Here again is Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah number 2. I used it before. So it's the same surah that Allah tell Muhammad, be nice, believe in them, seek their guidance. In the same surah, big contradiction in the same chapter. Slay them whenever you catch them and turn them out from where they have turned you out. For tumult and oppression are worse than slaughter. But fight them not at the sacred mosque unless they fight you first. Let's see this, and then we're going to see the next one. And fight them until there is no more tumult and oppression, and their believer justice and what? To have faith in Allah. Can you be a Christian?
No.
No. Can you be Jews?
No.
No, you have to be Muslim. So fight them until there's what? Justice and faith in Allah. But if they cease, let there be no hostility. Pay attention here. Fight them. If they cease, let be no hostility because they accept the will of Allah or accept their second-class position where they pay jizya or the poll tax and feel subdued and humiliated. Next. Here, no Muslim will share this with you. Fighting is not defending. Fighting is prescribed for you, and you dislike but it is possible that you dislike a thing which is good for you. God tell Muhammad and his follower, go and fight, go and raid other tribes, go and invite them to Islam, and if they reject, kill all men and take all women as booty and take the children and confiscate all their belonging. Next. They but wish that you should reject faith as they do, and thus be on the same footing. But take not friend from their rank until they what? They flee in the way what? Of Allah. Pay attention, I put this in a different color to pay attention. But if they turn renegade, seize them and what? Like and that's what happened after the death of Muhammad. Many tribes rejected Islam, and here what we called a Ridda war, when Abu Bakr, the first Caliph of Muhammad, starts a slaughter of people who just reject Islam. And Muslims tell you, you have all freedom. We give you freedom, we give you human right, we give you all access to all alternative. No, sir. No, sir. If you force a tribe to be a Muslim and then they renegade, kills them. Next. Remember the Lord inspires the angel. I am with you. Give firmness to the believer. I will instill what? Terror. God did not even let Muslim fight. God used an army of angels to fight with Muslim against the Jewish tribe of Banu Qurayza. Because the Muslims said, we're done. We're not going to kill them. Said, no. The angels are still fighting, so continue the fight. And not kill. You have to what? Instill what? Terror. That's why you see the videos. You see the slaughter. You see the sword. You see the head being separated to terrorize the people. Okay. Next. Against them. Make ready your strength to the utmost of your power, including state of war, to strike terror into the heart of the enemy of Allah and your enemies. So here is not to defeat them, because when you instill terror on people, you dominate them, you impose tax on them, you make them feel or live as second class, and you impose your rule on them, and they feel subdued and humiliated. Next. O Prophet, rouse the believer to fight. Rouse. It's not rouse the believer to defend. Rouse the believer to raid, to conquer, to attack. Like when they come to Egypt, when they came to Syria and Galilee, and when they went to Spain, and when they went to East to Persia, and so on. Next. In the last one, can you move back, 32? In this here, if there is 10 believer, can what? A 10 believer, if 100 believer, they can defeat 1,000 non-believers. That's what God said. Next verse, now God realized or figured out that the believer are weak. So said now, it's only if you have 100, you can beat what? 200, not 100 beat 1,000, because God realized or got better informed. Next. But when the forbidden months are past, then fight and slay. Fight and slay the pagan, not defend. Fight and what? Slay. Pay attention. The pagan, whenever you want, You find them, so you have to go to look for them. They are not coming to attack you, so you see them coming and you defend yourself and your family. Beleaguer them, lie in wait for them. That means wait like thief and criminal wait for innocent people in the dark time of the night in a corner of streets. Next, fight them, and Allah will punish them by your hand. Cover them with shame. That means if you fight them, and God will punish them with your hand, as if God cannot punish people. And like here, God will find them with shame, help you to victory over them. Here's the breast of the believer. I said, where is the anger? Why you hear the breast of the believer from? Is anger? Is hate? Is complete disrespect of other? Or love and peace? Because if you love and peace, you don't kill. Next. Here is the one of the most famous verse. Pay attention to this. Fight those who believe not in Allah nor in the last day, nor hold that forbidden which has been forbidden by Allah and what? She said by Allah. No. What about the messenger? Okay. Nor acknowledge the religion of truth, even people who did not acknowledge Islam. What is it here? Of the people of the book. So go, even if they are Christian and Jews, until they pay what? They pay jizya with the full tax, with willing submission, and feels himself what? Not free. Subdue them, humiliate them, take money from them. Time is over.
You can blame me, but you
1 minute.
Wrap it up in 1 minute. Yeah.
Okay.
1 minute.
Come in. Next. Can move away. Next one. O prophet, strive hard against the believer and the unbeliever. Against the unbeliever and the hypocrite. And be firm against them. Can you move? Keep moving, and I'll tell you where you stop. Keep moving. Keep moving. Keep moving. Stop. So here is like, I'm going to take this 1 minute, I'm going to move very fast. Muslim and God, Allah said, my word never changed, but God, Allah will change. Let's see and focus on the pink word. The later, more violent Quranic verses abrogated the earlier. The earlier is of whom? The peace-loving, the secular, and the moderate Muslim. The later one is the radical fundamentalist Muslim. Let's move. So here, there is none that can be what? Alter the world. Pay attention. Next. None can change his word. Next. No change can there be in the word of Allah. Next. None can change his word. Next. Pay attention here. We have, without doubt, sent down the message. We will assuredly regard it. God guards this. Next. So here, let's go next, because I'm going to move fast now. Earlier. Okay. No, earlier. That's the thing. I want to see a second here. God blot out what he will, or he confirm, and with him is the mother of book. Can you go previous? And whenever we change one verse for another, God knows best what he sent down. So now, no change. I don't change. I will never change. But if I change, I give better. I make you forget some verses. Why? So here, the later or the more violent verses are the verses that abrogate what? So the third phase verses and teachings, the more violent, that reflect Islamic dominance and imposing Sharia, abrogate the early, more peaceful verses. Thank you. I'll stop here.
I'm willing to bet that he could go on for another hour. And I'm willing to bet that you would probably enjoy it and take a lot from it. But we're probably going to go over on all of the speakers, and it's going to take away from your time to ask questions. So I hope that's all right. We're going to probably go beyond our normal 8:30 done, so that we can have questions, okay? That's right. There's a lady back there. Grandma? Come on, you sure? Okay. Our next speaker is Robert Van Voorst. He is the professor of New Testament at Western Theology Seminary. Let's have a warm welcome for Robert. We've got a big timer here, which is okay. Well, thank you very much for the invitation to be here and share some theological perspectives on Islam. And I have points to make, and because time's a wasting, we'll head right through and get into them. Professor Abadir talked very well about the double attitude toward Christianity and Islam. Christianity and Judaism, that is, on the part of Islam from the very first generation. And to some extent, Islam has been working with that, especially in modern times. But for most of Islamic history and for many Muslims today, the more negative one tends to predominate. Very soon, Christianity and Islam separated, or to put it probably more accurately, Islam separated itself from Christianity and Judaism with a variety of things. And the important thing to realize is that this happened during the lifetime of Muhammad himself. So this is sort of foundational for the Muslim faith. Secondly, religion and government was combined very strongly from the very first generation. When Muhammad was thrust out of Mecca, because the city fathers feared that he was converting too quickly and would take over. And some of his religion was a threat to the established order there. And he traveled, of course, to Medina and took that city over, was welcomed there, and soon became a leader. And it was from that point that religion and government was strongly combined. It was at this point that Islam was no longer just what we would consider a religion that was based upon conversion and worship and organization and things like this, with a different government alongside it. It became a unified thing. And from that point on, Muhammad became a political and military leader. And from that point on, for most of Muslim history, for most Muslims, especially those who live in Muslim countries, Islam is both a way of life and a religion and a governmental system in a lot of ways. Of course, now we in the Western world have learned that religion should be free from state control. This is one of our hard-fought religious freedoms, political freedoms enshrined in the First Amendment. It's important that religion be practiced freely and be not subject to state control. But in the Muslim world, that is quite different. There's a very close connection there between those two things. The third point I want to make is that Islam grew very quickly from the very first generation. It was a quickly expanding religion. In the history of all world religions, Islam grew more quickly in its first 100 years than any other religion ever grew. And this began during the lifetime of Muhammad. All the emphasis upon fighting, or jihad, that Professor Abadir talked about was well accomplished during the lifetime of Muhammad. So during his lifetime, the religion grew very quickly, and it also, after his death, it grew even faster. It grew so fast, of course, that within 100 years after his death, the present nation of Spain was largely taken over, and
much of the Christian world, especially in the East and North Africa, and Spain was taken over at that time. So a quickly expanding religion that sometimes today feels a burden that the expansion is not quick enough in the world today. And this is part of Muslim extremism as well, an urge to spread the religion and to assert its influence around the world. The fourth point I want to make, the final one here, is that religious rights of minorities tend to be very restricted, as Professor Abadir said. Islam from the first had this double attitude to Christianity, of course, and Judaism. Other religions were not tolerated, especially polytheists, Arab polytheists, which most of them were, worshiped many gods. And for these people, it was conversion or death. And this is some of the most difficult material to deal with in the Quran. Evidently in the Quran and in the life of Muhammad, there was a great deal of kickback on this. A lot of people didn't like it, tried to avoid it for a variety of reasons. And so we find in the Quran all of sort of constant invocation of the necessity of fighting, even though you don't like it, even though you think it's not right, I want you to do it, supposedly, Allah says through Muhammad. And you find the very common saying in the Quran, repeated almost as a refrain, idolatry is worse than carnage. In other words, when idolatry threatens to take over Islam, to encroach upon its territory, to fight is the primary way to get after this. So, in this sort of a setting, the religious rights of Christians and Jews, and to some extent Zoroastrians, were very restricted. For example, and perhaps Professor Abadir can talk about this during the question and answer time, in Egypt when it was conquered, very soon after the death of Muhammad, the majority of people were Christians and continue to be so. But over time, century after century after century, the pressure on Christians was intentionally put to reduce the population. And what we would consider religious rights were not fully respected. For example, Christians and Jews had no right to convert others to their faith. They had no right to practice their religion openly. They had no right, even at times, to repair their own churches and synagogues. So over time, as you can imagine, population is very much reduced. So the Christian population in Egypt, which is probably 80–90% when it was conquered by Islam, is now roughly 15%. And in the present situation, the Coptic Christians in Egypt are very afraid that political upheaval and uncertainty there is going to result in even more pressure, as is very common recently in the Arab world. So this, of course, is a difficult situation. There are other things to be considered. Of course, I'm giving you sort of a snapshot and a select picture, but then I want to go on to talk very quickly about what to do. How's my timer doing, Jim? Oh, excellent, 12:42 to be precise, okay. So what to do? First, we want to encourage moderate Muslims in the world to crack down on jihadists, those who are waging war in their own particular way, in a way that is even more extreme than some of the traditional rules for war and struggle that are laid down in the Quran and the Hadith in Muslim religion. For example, the notion of attacking without declaring war is forbidden. It's seen as something wrong. The notion of directly attacking civilians, especially women and children, is wrong. And you can draw up a whole list of all the different ways in which many jihadist attacks in the last 10–20 years have gone beyond this. And so the United States and European nations are gradually, and I think pretty effectively, leaning on many Arab states in particular to clamp down on the funding of jihadists. In takes a great deal of money to run a terror network. One of the things that made the Taliban so effective in Afghanistan was that the Afghan government, of course, was, well, what political scientists call a failed state, right? It was completely corrupt, it was incapable of running the country, a failed state. And the Taliban bankrolled it, in effect. It had so much money that it could influence the government of the nation and carve a place for itself and help to take over. So, because it takes a great deal of money to do things like this, we should encourage moderate Muslims throughout the world, and even those who may not like it, to crack down on jihadists, through bank reforms and other things, some of these shadowy foundations that funnel money. This is very important to continue. Secondly, we want, especially in this country, because we think as Americans about our own situation first and foremost, we want to continue to encourage the peaceful assimilations of U.S. Muslims into American society. Most Americans don't realize this, but Muslims in this country and our attitude to Muslims is a special and in some ways a happy and even wonderful situation. Many European countries have large Muslim populations that are completely unassimilated. They don't share the values of the nation, they don't share the culture, the way of life, or anything like this. Their populations are growing and they pose a very large headache to a lot of nations. What's going to happen in various parts of France, the Netherlands, Great Britain, other nations, when Muslims grow so large they can take over politically various districts, various areas? What might happen in the nation of Israel? A different sort of situation, but analogous. What might happen when and if the Muslim population in the borders of Israel becomes larger than the Jewish population? What might happen in that sort of a thing? So lately we've seen sometimes very moderate and even liberal political leaders in Europe talking about the failure of multiculturalism. The Prime Minister of England has talked about this. The President of Germany, Angela Merkel, has talked about this, much to the consternation of a lot of political liberals in the West and in her own country. But this is all a part of the debate. We want to encourage assimilation. Most U.S. Muslims came here because they wanted to come here. Their incomes and level of education are high. Most American Muslims make more on average than non-Muslims in this country. The state of Michigan has a large Muslim population in Dearborn with good football teams. Yeah, play good football. So there you go. We want to continue a balanced education of the American public and in schools about Islam. Too often, talk about Islam tends to be a ping-pong match of cliches. They're all peaceful, they're all warlike. They're all peaceful, they're all warlike. We want to end this ping-pong match and reach a balanced, what we might call, to quote Fox News, a fair and balanced approach to Islam. We want to have the truth, and we want to treat U.S. citizens who are Muslims in an equitable American way. This will encourage assimilation. It will encourage even conversion. I have known myself American Muslims who moved to this country from various Arab nations or Iran, Persian nation. Parents have sort of backed off on the strong practice of Islam, and over time their children convert to Christianity. It can happen in this country, when they are welcomed and encouraged to do so. But if we think that they're all terrorists and they're all going to stay Muslims, we'll never get any conversion, and it's going to stay a bad situation. So we want to encourage this balanced approach. And finally, we want, I think, to work to better Israel-Arab relations. This is the one international aspect of conflict between Islam and the West that is just very difficult to solve. It's, no matter what you think about the right of Israel to be there and the wisdom of that, the fact is, as most Jews in the world and most Arabs in the world recognize, it's a difficult situation. It's not easy. If it would have been easy to make peace in that area, peace would have been made generations ago. But it continues to be very difficult, and we want to encourage moderation and creative thinking, and maybe, God willing, some movement toward a better situation and a more peaceful situation in the Middle East. Because if the present conflict continues and opinion on both the Israeli side and the Arab side becomes more and more hostile to each other, what's going to happen when Iran finally develops nuclear weapons? What's going to happen when a lot of Arabs finally decide they've had it and are going to start an invasion? What might happen when Israeli leaders decide, God forbid, that they're going to have a first strike upon all of their potential enemies? We've got to work to back this down and try to improve this. It's not easy. A lot of American presidents are trying to do this, but it's difficult. This is probably the one international conflict, continuing conflict, that is the most difficult. Most Christians and probably most Jews in the world do not realize how strongly Muslims, not just Arab Muslims, because most, let's say this exactly, most Muslims in the world are not Arabs. The largest Muslim country by population is Indonesia, right? Most Muslims are not Arabs, but we have to work to better the situation, because a lot of Muslims, whether they're Arabs or not, know about this and just don't like the situation. So, lots to think about, lots to do, but thank you for having me. And now I'll yield my microphone. 3 minutes and 41 seconds.
I've got a question.
You want to take a question now? Yeah, sure. Yeah.
How do you define moderate Muslim?
They're more and more difficult to find. At the beginning of the 20th century, it was more difficult to, it was easier to find a moderate Muslim. Now, I define a moderate Muslim, of course, as somebody who is in fact Muslim and practices the religion, but who is willing to, let's say, engage with other people in the nation of different religions, who is not automatically anti-American or anti-Western politically. So the big question, for example, is the new government in Egypt. You know, how conservative is it going to be? How much pressure on Coptic Christians there? How anti-Israel it might be, we just don't know. So this is a spectrum, right? The situation in the Muslim world today is there is a great deal of pressure to swing to one extreme or the other. Many Muslims have swung to a more conservative standpoint. A few of them, the noisy ones, have swung to the left. But basically, most American Muslims, U.S. citizens who are Muslims, are in fact moderate. They don't fund jihad. They don't like it. They don't go for it. And it is we just want to encourage it. Another question.
I didn't see that in your report.
Okay. Well, it is a different sort of place. It's an explicitly Muslim community. Many immigrant groups who have a different religion than the dominant religion, they stick together and they try to assert their own faith just to keep it alive. But the best thing to do is to engage and to give civil rights.
Why don't we, instead of taking a continuation of one person, why don't we ask this
Yeah.
gentleman?
Yes.
Moderate Muslim, which you say,
Yes.
this, in my opinion, is an oxymoron.
Okay.
So I am from a Muslim country, but
Yes.
I'm not a Muslim. I'm from Pakistan.
Yes.
A Muslim is a person who follows the Quran and Sunnah and the Hadith in letter and spirit.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean offering prayers 5 times a day. It doesn't mean only keeping the 30 days of Ramadan. It doesn't mean going to Hajj. It means following the Quran in letter and spirit. Period.
Mhm.
Anything other than that, you may call him a fanatic, you may call him a radical, you can call him anything. A Muslim is a Muslim. There is no moderate, there is no radical, there is no liberal, there is no fanatical, there is no militant, there is no political. He is a simple Muslim.
Good.
See, so this thing is an oxymoron. You can't say a moderate Muslim. Can you say about Nazis? What can you say? Can you say that communists are capitalists? The capitalist communists, can you say that? You can't say that.
No, I wouldn't.
You can't.
But
You see, he has to follow the Quran.
right.
If Osama bin Laden, he is the worst radical around which we know.
Mhm.
But he is quoting all the Quran, the Quranic verses. He say, I'm following these verses. There's another whom you and I call, he's a moderate, he's a liberal. He quotes some verses which Mr. David said that from the earlier stages. See, they will never quote those verses from the later stages.
What is the
Which
question?
is what we call violent or something, and
What is the
violent
gentleman's
Muslim,
question?
Okay, he's making a comment.
See, if he's
We're gonna
not
take a-
supporting it directly, he is either keeping quiet, seeing an act of terrorism being planned. If he keeps quiet, he's as much as an abettor as anybody else.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for your comment. Thank you.
We're going to take more questions at the end. I hadn't expected to have them in between here.
And now the next speaker.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to do something in the middle here. Steve? Gene is queuing up a video. Oh, there's our puppets. Why don't we start them all going, okay? Here, why don't you?
Just a quick little commercial here. The Ottawa County Patriots is probably one of the most dynamic groups in the state. You've probably seen commercials on television about donating to the Tea Party Patriots. We don't get any of that money. We're self-funded. Basically, we pass the buckets around. That's how we pay for room rent. We have a radio program. We put on different programs and events, and it's all to the free will offering of people in the group. So please be generous. We're passing around buckets and some collection baskets here, and give what you can. If you write a check, write it out to Ottawa County Patriots, and we appreciate anything you can do. So, as we always say, freedom isn't free. The information we share is to educate the community in important events such as this, but we can't do it without your support. Thank you.
I mentioned earlier that this program was, if you will, rejected at Hope College. All right? And what we're going to see here in a moment is a little video. Help our speedy pup. Losing her. Wait, okay. Commercials. That's right. What we're going to see in a little bit is a video, and it talks about a father at a son in college and so on. But before I get to that, anybody notice the fashion that I'm sporting? We got these for the hot dog stand last week in Holland, just so we could all be in uniform. And what we want to do is we want to order these in quantity so we can get the price down. And if you would like one of these shirts, we're going to sell them for $10 a piece. I want you to see Amy before the evening is over. She's got her hand up. She's back in the corner there. Nobody puts Amy in a corner. Isn't that a line from, what's that movie? I can't remember. Dirty Dancing. Okay. All right, we're going to watch a video that's sort of disturbing. Are we ready, Jane?
Yep.
I want to remind you that those little forms that you filled out, we definitely want to collect those before the night is over. How we doing on sound?
A middle-class family out of Memphis, Tennessee, enrolled at Tennessee State University in Nashville. 6 years later, he was in prison, charged with the murder of Army PFC William Long in Little Rock, Arkansas. This was the first homegrown Islamic terrorist attack in the United States.
I don't think it was murder, because murder is when a person kills another person without justice for 5 reasons. And I feel like what I did was Islamic justified and also justified, common sense. You don't just kill an innocent Muslim man and woman, and we believe that we have to.
Maps to Jewish organizations, a child care center, a Baptist church, a post office, and more Army recruiting centers in New York and Philadelphia.
How did Carlos go from being a regular American kid to becoming a jihadist murderer who believes that the murder of American soldiers and Jews is justified by Islam? According to Carlos's father, Melvin Bledsoe, Carlos became involved with radical Islamic activities while at TSU and started learning about Islam at a local mosque.
He got involved with going to a mosque in Nashville called the Islamic Center of Nashville. And to me, this is where I have learned that a lot of this teaching, maybe I think they call them scholars, that will teach you about the religion, Islam. This place may be something that I need a lot more looking at by the American government. I think so.
Americans for Peace and Tolerance has investigated the ideology being preached at the Islamic Center of Nashville, or ICN as it's known, and on 2 campuses in the area, Tennessee State University and Vanderbilt University. Everything reported in this video is easily available from public sources. That it hasn't been reported earlier is reflective of the failure of Nashville's media and civic leadership. They have simply not addressed the dangerous and ongoing trend of radicalization within Nashville's traditionally moderate Muslim community. While Carlos was studying in Nashville, an Islamic proselytizing group called Olive Tree Education Foundation, operated by the leaders of the ICN Mosque, was offering classes on Islam at his university. According to its website, from 1999 to 2004, Olive Tree provided over 400 hours of instruction to more than 300 students at TSU.
If we believe in this God called Allah, He tells us what to do. It's a very important aspect of Islam. He tells us what to do.
Olive Tree has promoted itself around Nashville as a peaceful outreach group, which promotes a moderate version of Islam. But a quick scan of the group's website archives from several years ago shows that some of its suggested Islamic scholars were anything but moderate. Olive Tree's website links included works by Anwar al-Awlaki, the radical American-educated Yemeni cleric and al-Qaeda leader who, wanted by the American government, fled to Yemen in 2007. Since then, Awlaki has had a direct hand in planning the attempted Christmas Day 2009 airplane bombing, had communicated by email with the 2009 Fort Hood jihadist murderer, and also had inspired the 2010 Times Square attempted bomber. America wants to destroy the Islam that was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad. My message to the Muslims in general, and to those in the Arabian Peninsula in particular, is that we should participate in this jihad against America.
We're going to skip ahead. That's good.
People who raise questions about radicalization as bigoted or Islamophobic. Melvin.
This is good. This is where I want you.
Congressman Bledsoe blames Nashville-based Islamic radicals for setting his son on the path to extremism and hatred.
Still yet, I have a hole in my heart. Oh yes, my heart do bleeds for the family of the victim. But we too are victims. My son was a victim. People need to understand, in this country, there are people out here is bent on destroying the America we live, the America we know. They don't care about who they use.
Thank you, thank you. And as this film video demonstrated, you know, there is a call it a fundamental, call it radical, call it whatever you want. It's very pervasive. You know, I've been told that the great number of Muslims that came to the United States did so to flee this fundamental terrorism, this Sharia law. Perhaps they're on their way to being converted. I don't know. Okay, I can't answer that. But when a university will not allow the truth to be told, will not allow the speakers that you heard here, and another one you're going to hear in a moment, are they promoting the idea that the truth is Islamophobic? Is anybody in this room Islamophobic? Raise your hand if you're an Islamophobic. Oh, you're an Islamophobic?
What does Islamophobic mean in the first place?
You hate all Muslims?
No, I don't hate all Muslims.
Okay.
Islamophobia means having a fear.
Yeah, it's in other words, the reason that we don't like our current administrator is because we're racist. Right? It's a word used to demean anybody who seeks the truth. At this point,
Sorry, but I fear anybody that wants to give me harm.
okay, I understand that. Okay. We're going to take questions at the end. At this point, I want to introduce our next speaker, Hussein Wario. Hussein was born in Kenya, grew up in a devout Muslim family, attended madrasa education, which is the very explicit education to become a Muslim. And from there, things changed. And with that, I want to introduce Hussein Wario.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you so much for having me. My wife, Frida, and I, we came from Chicago. And that's where we live, near Chicago. I'm very thankful to be here this evening to just share with you guys how the Lord brought me out of darkness into His marvelous light. Prior to me going there, I have some books I brought over there. You know, I have the Hadith, which is the sayings of Prophet Muhammad. You know, there are so many versions of it out there. I brought, I believe, 3 different versions that you guys can look through. They are like very rare books, so I don't want you guys to take copies home. I also I wrote a book. It's my autobiography. This gentleman brought up some questions about, you know, there's only one type of Muslim. Really, let me tell you something. You know, the Quran has 3 classifications of Muslims. There is a Muslim, that is just someone who submits. You know, a Muslim is someone who submits to the will of Allah. That's, a Christian would be like considered a Muslim because not like current Christians, but the disciples of Jesus, the Quran calls them Muslims. But there are those Muslims who believe everything in the Quran. They are called mu'min. They are called believers. And then there are those who fight, who believe in everything and then they put it to action. Those are like the likes of Osama bin Laden. And those are the kind that the Quran calls upon for Muslims to be. And those are called muhsin. So I discussed that in chapter 9 of my book. You know, when I talked about the rule of abrogation, I brought that out, kind of brought it up for people to understand. And about Islamophobia. By the way, the most Islamophobics are Muslims. You know why? Because actually they don't want to fathom the true Islam. They want to tell the American people that, hey, you know what? This is what the Quran says. That chapter 2 of the Quran, verse 256, the one that says there's no compulsion in religion. Do you know when that chapter was revealed to Muhammad? That was when Muhammad only had about 12 followers. Family members who were Muslim, when they moved to Medina, their children became Christian. They went to Muhammad and they asked him, what are we going to do? Muhammad said, I got this verse, there's no compulsion in religion. And you know what he ended up saying? May Allah banish them. He cast them. You see? So what I'm just saying is, I'm not here to pump about how we should help Muslims. We should all love Muslims. We should all reach out to Muslims. We should befriend them. Some of them have fled wars in their countries. They have come here. We need to go across the street, invite them, get to know them, share with them the gospel, show them the love. But we shouldn't be ignorant. We should not be ignorant. Well, there are a few things that are happening in this country, like higher education, like the way Jim said about Hope College. Well, I was very disappointed that they weren't willing to balance the views. And one of the ladies who came over to speak, she pretty much lied to the people she presented to. There is a verse in the Quran that says, husband must beat their wives. The Arabic word used in there, even to those who go to Muslim countries right now, like some of our friends are in Jordan as missionaries. That word, darab, is used in the street as the word for beating. It is the Arabic word used in the Quran. This lady comes to Hope College with Jordanian missionaries in attendance at Hope College. They are telling the Americans that actually that word doesn't mean beating. What a lie. And also, higher education is one way people are misled. The other ways is through interfaith dialogues. You need to pay very close attention to that. There is one verse in the Quran they quote, chapter 49, verse 13. It talks about all mankind. We all came from like one man. Allah has put us everywhere so that we can worship Allah and all that. By the way, all mankind in that verse doesn't apply to everybody. It only applies to Muslims. That verse was revealed when Muhammad was riding a donkey. When he's riding the donkey is peed, and the pee spilled over to other Muslims. Pee in Islam is like very unclean. Then they started fighting. These Muslims started beating each other up. And that's when the verse was revealed about that. It wasn't revealed about Jews or Christians. So anyway, like I say, we shouldn't hate Muslims. We should love Muslims. They have come to America. This is a very free country. If it were my country, I wouldn't have just like moved around, going from place to place, maybe even announced that I'm going to do things. I wouldn't have done that. But because this is the United States, I can just go places. I don't have to worry so much. But anyway, let me get into my story. I'm from the Orma tribe. My tribe is from the Tana River district. Some of you this week have probably had it on the news how 52 Kenyans were killed. How many of you had that? All those were from my tribe. One of them was my niece. She was killed. She left behind a 3-week-old son. Very unfortunate. And you know who killed them? These are Muslims fighting Muslims. The Pokomos are majority Christian. But those Pokomos who killed my people group, my relatives, they are Muslim Pokomos. So anyway, the reason why I'm mentioning that story, because the person that came out to me and told me, you want to come over for Christmas? You want to come to my home? It's a Pokomo Christian. My tribe hates them. I don't hate him, but they hate the Pokomos. But that person, he was my teacher. I was only in 6th grade at that time. It's like, he became friends with me. He was my principal. He instigated how I should be transferred from that school to a boarding school. And then when I was in 7th grade, I was finishing up 7th grade. That November when school was done, it's like, you want to come over for Christmas? My family trusted him, so I ended up going there. That's how I got introduced to Christianity. I went to church. I didn't participate in it. Because where I come from, I don't know if they still believe this, but back then they were being told, you know, if you go into a church, Muslims, missionaries, those who spread Islam, they came and told my people group, if you go into a church and you sit down in the pews as a Muslim, all Christians, they were told that all Christians has a mark on their bottom. You know, all of them have a mark. So if you go sit in the pews in church, you get a mark on your body. So because of that, you know, when I was invited initially to go to the Christmas Eve service, I was scared to go because I really thought that Christians had marks, and if I go there, I would get a mark as well. So that night, you know, I declined to go. But all of us, eventually I was overcome by fear. That I had to go to church that night. The reason why that was the case, and is still the case, my district is like one of the unsafest districts in Kenya. That year, in 1988, in August, in that Pokomo village, Somali bandits had come. You know, you're all familiar with Somali. When I became a Christian, that was when they were just starting the war in Somalia. They used to have bandits come over and cause problems. So anyway, that night I was overcome by fear. I thought, like, if I was in a Pokomo village, if I would stay there by myself at night, and the bandits would come, the bandits were Muslim, by the way. They wouldn't know that I was a fellow Muslim. They would just take me. So I was scared. I went to church that night. That's how I was introduced to Christianity, sort of. You know, when I was there, I had the church songs. I had part of the gospel because the kids memorized Bible verses. They talked about how Jesus was prophesied in the Old Testament, you know, all the way to the gospel. I got all that information that night. I really didn't pay any attention. When I went to bed that night, I couldn't sleep. That was my introduction to Christianity. And that continued until I gave my life to the Lord in August 1989. But a lot of Muslims would ask me, how old were you when you converted? Well, I said that very clearly on my website. I said I was 14 years old. I'm not ashamed of that. Because a lot of them would be like, you are 14? You didn't know anything as a Muslim. Well, I was already through madrasa. That's the Quran school where you go and learn Arabic. You know, you learn how to read and write Arabic, and then you start memorizing the Quran they start from the end of the chapters. They call it the Juzu Amma. You know, it has about 37 chapters of the Quran, the shortest ones. That's the one mostly they recite at prayers. Those ones, they don't do as much. They were the earlier chapters, so they're not as violent. So, you know, I would tell them, I'm like, so what? You know, I learned about Islam. I converted. I was 14. And then I asked them, wait a minute. Muhammad married a 6-year-old. Well, there's no shame about that one. It's in the hadith. I'm like, she was 6 years old. They consummated the marriage when she was 9. Well, in the West, they say that's pedophile. But I don't like to tell Muslims that, you know, they respect their prophet. I tell them that girl was 6 years old. In the hadith, she has 2,000 hadith that she say, this is what happened. She was devout Muslim enough to be married to Prophet Muhammad at 9 years old. The Prophet of Islam, the most highest Muslim. So much of a Muslim, so devout, that Muslims today follow what a 6-year-old reported. 2,000 of them are in the hadith books. I'm like, so when it comes to me, I was 14. Muslims normally memorize the Quran at the age of 12 years old. There's some Egyptians I know. 12 years old, they memorize the Quran. So I wasn't devout enough. Oh well, I let them debate or whatever, you know. So anyway, I came to know the Lord, and it didn't go very well. The people who prayed for me, you know, they do the sinner's prayer. For some of you here, that might make sense. You know, the sinner's prayer, mostly they do it in Baptist churches. After I was convicted that no Christian really explained to me who Jesus was and all that, it was just through the work of the Holy Spirit, I'll say, I approached my math teacher in school. I said, I would like to become a believer. I'm a Christian. What do I need to do? Well, as a Muslim, I knew that for someone to become a Muslim, they have to shave their hair and all that, and they have to take a bath and all that, having a state of purity. That's what they do in my home area. When some of the Kenyans convert to Islam. So I thought maybe there was a procedure with Christianity as well. The math teacher said, you know what? Don't come to my house, just go to another house. He told me which one to go to. When I was there, I found out that he was an elder of his church. They prayed with me, and they gave me a Bible. Well, they gave me the Gideon's Bible. They didn't even tell me where to read from. And they told me, you know, you are in 8th grade now, until you're done with high school, maybe college, maybe if you are safe then, you can say you are a Christian. But I started reading the Bible. I was a Muslim who prayed 5 times a day. I fasted during the month of Ramadan. Ramadan just concluded a few weeks ago. I didn't put one foot there and the other foot there. When I learned enough, I went to high school. It didn't take very long. The truth came out that I am a Christian. When my family found out, persecution started. You know, Muslims in this country will tell you, you know, in Islam, there's freedom of religion. They can quote for you all they want about the verse, there is no compassion in religion. You know what? What Muslims practice actually is not in the Quran. The hadith is the one that tells them what to do. Well, the hadith, in the Quran, the professor from Calvin mentioned about how in chapter 4, verse 89, it talks about if they turn renegade, kill them. Well, that's like the most the Quran goes when it comes to apostasy. But in the hadith, Muhammad says a Muslim should be killed on 3 cases. If they kill another Muslim, if they commit adultery, or if leave Islam. Very clear. The 5 daily prayers, they aren't in the Quran. Why do Muslims pray? Because it's in the hadith. So majority of them will tell you, you know what? We just follow the Quran. The Quran doesn't say this. Well, actually, the hadith pretty much tells them what to do. Because in the Quran it doesn't say much. It's not very clear. Like, if you read it, it does not make sense. You cannot read like 10 verses in a row and for it to make sense. I have a professor at Hope College. I don't want to name him. You guys probably know him. He did say one time in an Islam class, you know the reason why the Quran is like that is because if you read 10 verses in a row, one Muslim would tell him in India where he would travel, now I've revealed who he is, in Pakistan or wherever where he goes, is because when you read 10 verses in a row, the reason why it could jumble up, it would say Jesus. You know, Mary, the mother of Jesus, is the sister of Moses and Aaron. They lived like over 2,000 years apart. The reason why it could say all that is because if you read 10 verses, you get the whole history. At least if that history is consistent, it is not consistent. Now, you cannot really read the Quran and understand. You have to read the Quran and maybe the tafsir together with it. The tafsir is the commentary. You know, if you read the hadith would make a lot of sense. But the Quran doesn't. It's like the way the thought process of Allah, seriously, it doesn't connect. It does not. I'm not here to make, hey, Allah, by the way, if it's the God Almighty, I would have no problem with that. But the one in the Quran, toward the end of the chapter, of Muhammad's life, you cannot tell Allah from Muhammad. The professor showed it very clearly. The first 10 years of Islam, it was all about Allah. After the last 12 years, whatever Muhammad said, is pretty much whatever Allah said. If you obey Allah, you have to obey Muhammad. You know? So we need to be very careful. In this country, there's a lot of talk about it. Muslims have a right, by the way, I do believe they have a right to build mosques because it's the law that shows that. You know, it's protected by that. Not just anywhere they can build. Wherever it is approved. Like there's an opposition going on in Tennessee. Well, that's kind of put it in a very bad light when it comes to us because those guys fought really hard, but in the end, the people who opposed it, in the end, they lost. Well, we have to fight radical Islam. We have to fight informed. We have to fight informed. This is a great country. A lot of them come here and use the system here to even probably subvert eventually. How many of them have multiple wives? But they don't actually say that, you know. They're using the system. They're using the welfare and all kinds of stuff. But we need to reach out. Because there are a lot who are suffering here. There are a lot that are oppressed. You know, I know people who have been killed. Like, I mean, one of the girls, her sister was killed because a Muslim woman. I mean, she's a Christian now. She lives somewhere in Michigan. Her sister was killed because she became a believer. Her husband killed her in honor killing. And what would Muslims in America tell you, like Council of America-Islamic Relations? They will say something like that doesn't happen. You know? Something like that doesn't happen. Well, in San Diego, the lady was killed. It was all blamed on Christians. I mean, on Christians who have opposed Islam over there. But it turns out, oh, she filed for divorce. Oh, the truth is coming out. Anyway, we need to reach out to Muslims in love. I'm one example, and there are so many examples in Chicago that we know, Rita and I know, who have come to know the Lord, who have come to see the light. And some of them are learning about Islam like, wow, this is what it was all about, because a lot of Muslims don't know what they are following. They don't. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hussein. Yeah. I want to just emphasize something here, okay? We heard a little bit about it from Professor Van Voorst. We heard about it from Hussein. Jesus can reach Muslims. He reached this one, okay? And he can reach others. The concept of hate, you know, and when this article appeared in the paper last week, you cannot believe the amount of hate shown in the comments online. I don't know if anybody goes to the online comments, and it's just terrible. And it is an example of hatred towards anybody speaking the truth. I don't think we need to respond with that. I don't think anybody was talking about hatred here tonight. And the truth, just understanding and learning, and it's what I believe happened here tonight. At this point, we do want to ask questions. We're going to take questions for 15 minutes. It is what? It's at 25 after right now, okay? And I'd like to hear a question, and I'd like to address it to one of the three people in the form of a question, not a speech. Tom.
Yeah, I wanted to ask the professor, because we were involved with a symposium that Hope put on a year ago on Islam, and it was totally void of the voice that we've heard tonight on what the issue is about. And I understand that Hope is a college of higher learning, and those students are very knowledgeable, but in order for them to come to logical conclusions, they need to get all of the facts. And I still don't see Hope opening up their arms to allow conversations from across the spectrum to have this dialogue that you see. And I wonder, what can you do about it as a professor? Can you open it up from a Christian perspective to bring in some of these speakers so the students get the full spectrum of truth in order to derive their own conclusions?
Before you answer, are there any Hope College students in here?
Well, they're just coming back from school. So.
No, well,
yeah, well, to clarify, I teach at Western Theological Seminary, which is a distinct institution, so I can't comment directly on attitudes or actions at Hope. But like I said in my comments, there's a lot of diverse opinion and there's some extreme opinion about knowledge of Islam in this country and its history and what to do. Because we're in a difficult situation, fighting, well, one war, recently 2 wars, come under a very strong terrorist attack that shook the nation very strongly. And in this sort of a situation, it's hard to think clearly and put all the opinions and knowledge on the table so that students and others can think it through. But I think it's even more important to do so. If it's true that the college has done this, well, that's disappointing to me, but yeah, I teach in a better school. I'm a Hope College graduate, and proudly so. And I think it's nice that we have a Hope graduate and a Calvin, 2 Hope graduates and a Calvin professor speaking tonight. Pretty good, huh?
You already asked one. I got Cheryl, you're next. I'm gonna try to skip around. Can your voice loud enough?
Yeah, Professor, wanted to ask clarification. I thought in regard to Israel that you were making a moral equivalence between Israel and her enemies, and also as a matter of extension that you inferred that since it's such an intractable problem that the world is focused on, that if, in my opinion, God forbid, Israel did not exist, there would be peace in the Middle East, and that further perhaps we wouldn't be as hated as we were or are presently. Can you clarify your opinion of Israel versus its enemies?
Repeat the comment. Yeah, the comment, the question is, do I hold that there's a moral equivalence between Israel and her Arab opponents? If Israel disappeared over time, would that solve any sort of a problem? Second question first, no, it wouldn't. Even if all Jews in the Middle East were pushed into the sea, that would just make it worse. And I don't hold a moral equivalence. This is why I said in my comments about Israel and Arab, that conflict, I said that no matter what our own opinions might be and our own perspectives on this problem, it's very important for us to push as much as we can for understanding, for at least peace in the absence of outright warfare, especially now that the threat level is rising and there's increased discussion in the press and military circles and political circles about preemptive first strikes, even some of them nuclear. The last thing we want is a nuclear war in the Middle East. We just don't want that. So that's my clarification.
It seems you're under the hot gun. Emmanuel, and both of you, there's other people that want to ask, and I know you would want. This gentleman over here in the green shirt. Did you have? Who else down here?
Professor Arbiter, I'm a Christian. Saudi Arabia is our ally. Say I'm walking down the street in Saudi Arabia, dressed the way I am, except that I've got a cross around my neck. What, if anything, would happen to me?
In Saudi Arabia, as the Prophet Muhammad said, there are no two religions in the peninsula. That's right. That's why all Christians and Jews were expelled or killed or forced to move. There is no one citizen in the Saudi citizen who is non-Muslim. The good news with internet, some people who have the underground church right now in Saudi Arabia, where tens, if not hundreds of Saudi Arabia accepted Jesus Christ. But if you walk in the street, you should not hold the Bible. You should not hold anything that make you proud of your religion, because you should feel subdued. Yes. And you should feel humiliated because you are walking on Muslim land, you are walking on holy lands as the Prophet Muhammad walked on it, and who said no to religion in the peninsula. I hope this will answer your question.
Would I get attacked openly on the street?
You are not, maybe like the virtue police will beat you with a stick in your back until you hide it. And if you reject that, and you said, I'm American, I'm proud American, it's my freedom, till you know you are in the Saudi Muslim land, and you're going to. It's the same as many women who are beaten because they show part of their legs, or because they laugh in the street. They are beaten. There is a virtue police. In Saudi Arabia, there are official virtue police, Saudi Arabia, in Iran, Pakistan, in Taliban, and now there is a new movement in Egypt where we have sort of informal virtue police, that's Islamic police that to adhere to Islamic conduct. And in Islamic conduct, you don't show your cross or don't be proud of being non-Muslim.
Yes. Professor, I have a yes or no question. Answer.
Again,
yes or no?
One quick question.
Now, I believe that most of us can agree that our ancestors or ourselves or our family moved here from oppression. I don't remember being a Chinese outreach, a Japanese outreach, a Polish outreach, or any other type of outreach. Would you say this outreach is due to fear and a possible threat? Yes or no? A threat of American life, not assimilation. We all assimilated to America. We don't represent a threat for our neighbors at all. I don't remember any kind of outreach. We have an outreach of Muslim, Islamic outreach forced upon us, I think, and I wonder if that's because there's an actual threat.
There is an Islamic rule, and there are many verses in the Quran that urge the Muslim to convert all the Muslim, to preach Islam. And once, if they have no power, they will accept your decision to accept or not. But if they have power, they force you to accept Islam or impose jizya on you or kill you or declare a war against you. So they are called to force according to their power. When they are weak, they accept that you move away. If they are strong.
Gentleman in the back. Oh. Yes, sir. Can you speak up?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. I work in a West Michigan community where there's already been conflict with the local imam and the government. My question, and by the way, I worked in Bosnia for 1.5 years and I agree with loving Muslims and have evangelized Muslims myself. Having said that, my question is, how can, and I'd like the first speaker to address the second speaker, because I'm getting this from the second speaker, and maybe I misunderstood him. My question is, how can peaceful assimilation work if Muslim leaders who can't submit to our Constitution if they submit to Allah, express their belief in, do not express their beliefs in Islam until they're strong enough? Because as a religious, political, and military culture, and the Hadith or the Quran, I'm not sure which, allows them to lie and hold back their beliefs until they're strong enough. How I'm concerned, as much as the experience I've had, I'm anything but an Islamophobe. And I have many Muslim friends in this country and in other countries. My concern is, when we try to do peaceful assimilation, are we committing suicide?
Yep. Which one of you guys wants to handle that?
Well, as long as assimilation works, especially in this country where the overall proportion of Muslims to Christians is very low, it's much higher in European nations. As long as, well, to take one example, as long as acts of violence by American Muslims against other Americans are sort of solo actor sort of things, as we saw in the video. As far as I know, as far as the government knows, there's very little, if any, organized sleeper cells in this country of American Muslims.
But I'm not talking about terrorism.
Yeah, well,
in England, there are areas that want to be, they're allowing, English courts have allowed them to institute Sharia law.
Yeah, well, that's controversial too, and whether
that's what they want where I work.
Yeah, well, it's a problem. In America, it's a part of our heritage, a part of the essence of this country, that we grant a rich degree of religious freedom. You know, there are a lot of Christian groups that don't recognize the U.S. Constitution either, like the Amish and the Mennonite. Right. Yeah, it's not just groups like Muslims or Jehovah's Witnesses. There are many groups that are tolerated. Of course, they provide no violent threat usually. So, but that's a part of my point is here. Assimilation is happening. You can read up on it. It's there, and it's working. In the last 10, 15 years, as America has fought foreign wars, and after we came under attack in 2001, Then the situation is more complex, it's more difficult, and there are more solo actors that perpetrate violence in the name of Islam against other Americans. But we just do the best we can with it. We don't want to have an overall threat of persecution against Islam. For example, when it was revealed, about a year ago, that the New York City Police Department had all mosques in the tri-state area, not just New York City, but all of New York State, Connecticut, and New Jersey. They had agents in all of these mosques. They were listening surreptitiously to everything going on in these mosques and taking photographs of people. Now, the New York City Police Department defended it, and Mayor Bloomberg said, this is what we're going to do to prevent another 9/11 attack. But the governors of these other states, like Chris Christie, kicked back against that. When you have evidence that people are actually breaking the law or are plotting, then you have some reason and get a court order to put a mosque under surveillance, or a Christian church under surveillance for that matter. But absent that, we just don't want to give Muslims the impression that they're always being watched, always being suspected, always being threatened. That's not a Christian thing to do, much less American. So,
I was hoping the first. We're going to try and get each to answer quickly.
Let me comment, and I agree with the professor. We should be smart. Before you go and attack somebody or attack you when you are blind by anger, just open your eyes, understand where the attack comes from, and understand and discuss and study and research is the best response. So I agree with the professor. We should be smart in dealing with. We shouldn't go blindly and criticize all Muslims. Don't ever go and attack a woman who is wearing hijab or niqab, because many of them are forced to wear this to be allowed to walk in the street. Don't attack any person who goes to the mosque, because many of them go in fear, like my friend from Kenya. Because there are people who are watching you, your family watching you, people who are Muslim, the group in the area you live in, they are watching you. So there is a good watching and good informal spying from Muslim against Muslim. That's why we have the informal virtue police in Egypt.
I want, please. We've got one person answering at a time, please. I'd like Hussein to answer that question.
Well, I don't think the assimilation is working, so to speak, because there are Muslim enclaves. If you guys go and look up in New Mexico, they have their own little ghetto. I'm sure it's in New York too, near Buffalo, New York. They have their own little ghetto. In Little Rock, Arkansas, they have their own little ghetto. So there are places where, these are places where it's in the United States, and you have to abide by pretty much Islamic law. Especially in Little Rock, Arkansas, you cannot bring alcohol in that little enclave area. I'm not saying that to scare you guys, but those guys come here, and they come here to just use the laws that are here, to establish their own ways of doing things. And whatever happens over there, it's pretty much nobody outside of, and nobody would like find out. Like in Britain, there's some places where the cops don't even go, In France, it's the same thing. We shouldn't be scared, though. I think we need to reach out to them before they get sucked up into that kind of, About surveillance in mosques, do you guys know that this week, Saudi Arabia has started putting surveillance in their own mosque? This is a country with 100% Muslim population. If it wasn't a problem for Saudi Arabia, I don't know why anybody would cry if in the United States they do it.
Okay. I can believe we could go on and on forever. Okay. We're already. I know you want to say something, but you already did. I know you did. I want to just talk about something just a moment. Okay. We have the United States Constitution. We have the Michigan Constitution, right? And there's this Sharia thing, okay? That we heard the term creeping Sharia. etc. How many people know the number 4769? Does anybody not know what 4769 is? Amazing. That is a Michigan House bill that cannot get passed because what it says is that American law for American courts. The reason it cannot get passed is because Republican senators and Republican representatives will not allow it to come to the floor. In particular, the Randy Richardsville, if I got that name right? Randy Richardsville, he's the Speaker, no, the Senate, Speaker of the House, okay?
No, Senate Leader Randy
Senate Leader, I didn't think it was Speaker, Vulture, okay? And it will not get onto the floor, okay? Now, how do these radical people get into our country? Anybody know where they're coming from? Climbing over the fence. They're climbing over the fence because they can get an ID, they can get into our system, they can get, as Hossein said, use our welfare, use our Medicaid, school, etc. Why? Because there's no law that says, gee, we want to see your identification. And there's a real simple one. It's the E-Verify. So folks, if I leave you with nothing else tonight, write to your Michigan representative, write to your Michigan senator, and tell him there is a threat of Sharia in coming in. It's not just in Dearborn, it's everywhere. And I want to thank so much our speakers. Can I get you to please stand up here again, please? I want to remind you about the shirts. You're going to see Amy in the back. I want to remind you about the coffee. It should be hot by now. I want to remind you about the cookies and goodies, etc. And they're definitely good by now. They were probably good when they came in. Thank you so much. Yes. Oh, and definitely, please fill out the form. Fill out the form. Put it on the table in the back. Please. It's so very important. Thank you very much.
Your favorite guy. My
Go ahead. No, I don't know. No, I don't know how to go now. We'll go out this way.
Yeah.